Do you think that rabbis were actually using Mishnaic Hebrew in their discussions, Tanaim? That is, that it was a type of, could it be a kind of vernacular within scholarly circles? Or do you think that it was used for, mostly for the writing of the Mishnah, maybe by scribes? Is it a kind of, or could it be an oral language also, or is it a kind of...
We know it from this, from different religious groups, that this secondary literary legend could also be spoken. And probably they spoke in their discussions, at least they started to speak to the people, and probably then they had to for the beginners, to explain what they just said. But I think it was a spoken language, and we know this from several areas, that this can happen. And probably it was also the same in Qumran, that at some level they spoke this language.
Thank you so much for your clear talk. I have two questions, and they are really questions. So I do remember some of the stuff collected by Piet van der Horst about inscriptions, and he mentions, I believe, that most of the Jewish inscriptions outside the land of Israel are quite often Greek, but around Jerusalem and Judea, he finds also some Hebrew inscriptions. I'm not so sure. Did you see that material? And does it fit in your story? And I've also a second question. Yeah. And the second question is, when you look to the New Testament, then you find some Aramaic words, and that also is possible some material for your thesis.
Yes, of course. I just skipped it. I just skipped the part to show the heavy influence of Aramaic everywhere, except of the temple. We have some inscriptions, some later inscriptions in funeral inscriptions, but this is only this, and they have sometimes a ben. And it's interesting, the most clear Hebrew is person X ben Y hasofer, the scribe. So he belongs to the elite. And this inscription probably was mostly from the elite group, because normal people could not Australia, and but for the Hellenistic time and for the time until the second revolt, I really mentioned all material we really possess for Hebrew. Afterwards, it starts again in the 4th century, 5th century, the first synagogue inscriptions. There's some Hebrew influence, but this is normally from the Torah. And the text around is Aramaic. And later on, it becomes more and more Hebrew. And this is very interesting that we have this revival of the try to revive biblical Hebrew in the PO team. And you can see they have no idea of biblical Hebrew. The earlier PO team I don't understand them. If you understand them, I will come to you and to explain it. But it's a mixing up of biblical phrases, of self-made words, and nobody knows what they're speaking about. And it only changed in the 8th, 9th century when they apply the linguistic methods taken over from the Arabic tradition to the biblical Hebrew, and then they write the first grammars, and then they start to reuse biblical Hebrew. But in the early time, we really do not have anything there, and everything that we have is really in the connection of priests. It's also with the inscriptions from the first war, from the Jewish war. In Masada, there we have several ostraka with Hebrew inscription, but it's always to do with priests. And there were priests. There was a big priestly group on Masada, we know. So they could master it, but even the son of the Kohen HaGadol at this time, he has an Ostrokar which is written in Aramaic. Probably he wrote to his girlfriend or something like that. So I wouldn't say that the scriptural material does not shows it. Your second?
Second, you already answered.
Okay. I'm getting old.
Through this whole period, you've been through a number of different contexts, from the Persian through to the Tannaitic period. It seems to me that in most of those contexts, ordinary people are excluded from these elite dialects, language uses, even though they are living literary languages. These Amei Ha'aretz are excluded. Is that correct?
Probably. They were not excluded by, in any case, if you could learn it. And we have some examples of rabbis which probably came from lower strata, but then you have to learn it. And then you could become a member of the elite. It's not an Adelselite, as we say in Germany. How do you say in English?
Oh, an aristocracy.
Okay, aristocracy, but it's a learned elite. So if you manage to do it, and as you all know, it's very hard to come from the working class and end in Oxford, it was hard for them, but it was not excluded.
Sort of related to that Bart's question, but I think so papyrus just doesn't survive outside of the deserts in Judea, which severely limits the amount of evidence of written material that we have, apart from stuff that is scribbled on stones. And the stuff that's scribbled on stones, inscriptions and everything, is Aramaic, it's in Greek, and these are obviously languages, and somebody had to learn them, obviously. But which is why I think we have to be very careful with talking about an elite and scribal elites and Hebrew as a literary language, because if we're presented with just classical and post-biblical Hebrew literature, it gives the impression that scribes only sort of operate in Hebrew rather than doing administrative tasks with
It would be a misunderstanding that every scribe only wrote in Hebrew. Hebrew was confined to the cult, and we have, of course, a lot of Aramaic documents on papyrus at this time, and they are normally in Aramaic.
Yes, but my only point is that it's not disagreeing with you so much as just saying that that sort of administrative evidence, or the documentary evidence that we so badly want, just doesn't survive because it doesn't survive in the climate. Whereas, as you mentioned, the temple was the administrative hub during the Persian and Hellenistic periods, so not just literature is copied at the temple, but the whole kind of country is run from the temple with administration officers and everything else. But I think survival of evidence is so against us. and last point was, you didn't mention Jubilees, the Book of Jubilees, which would help your point with early attitudes towards Hebrew as a holy language. So I'm sure you just didn't have time for it.
Didn't mention a lot of things, but thank you very much to point me to the area of administration. Probably even in the Hellenistic times, the early temple period, the administration was mainly done in Aramaic. Our Ostraka, with this going to the bakery, shows it. And it's very interesting. Nearly, I think all family documents are in Aramaic. So this was
And it's all lost.
No, they're not all lost. So they are not all lost. We have one get from the 1st century, and we have 3 or 4 Doris. So it's not all lost. And it's really clear if you look at if you have documentary text, Aramaic, except for some really tries in the two revolts. And I always tell my students that we can really know the reason why Bar Kokhba revolt didn't work, because if you once has tried to read his letters, you don't understand them. So they probably did everything, but not what Bar Kokhba did.